Good morning to you. It's what time is it? It's 2 minutes to 6 here. I've actually been up for quite a while, and as soon as the birds start, I find myself waking up these days, and so I've just been having a quiet time. Now it's meditation time, and I thought to myself I'd make a video about how our practice makes us more intimate with life, and it's not something that gets talked about enough. Often we come to meditation and yoga and spiritual practices because we're trying to solve some kind of problem, or we feel like there's something we want to change, and we don't often talk about how actually as presence unfolds in our lives, as we live from presence more, that we actually become much more intimate with all things. And somebody was saying to me yesterday that how meditation was so difficult, and I was saying, well, perhaps that's because you think it is something difficult, it's something to be beaten, or you're trying to achieve the beating down of something, or fighting your way through something. But as you actually sit in presence, the intimacy with all things, all of life, all of people, even people we don't like, sometimes, and people that we do like and people that we do love, actually opens out. Anyway, I'll talk about that a little bit more later. It's my time to meditate, but I'm just lighting the candle and lighting some incense, because when we sit, it's good to have a little bit of ritual, not anything crazy, but just to kind of if we can sort of sit at the same time each day, and create a little beautiful space for ourselves, then we're kind of self-nourishing. We're actually building up a positive way of doing things. The wiring in our brain kind of thinks, okay, this is the time to do this thing. And then we create something beautiful for ourselves, which kind of is just giving to ourselves, which is wonderful. And then we just get on with it. And then, keeping your word to yourself and making that a beautiful expression, I think is a fantastic way forward. Anyway, it's my sitting time, so I'll talk to you in a little while. Okay, lots of love. Hello there. So meditation all done, yoga done, breakfast done, car dropped off at the garage, needs its service today. So just walked back. It's raining very slightly, very lovely out there, and I thought I'd make a little video about intimacy and life, because yesterday this sort of came up twice in conversations that I was having. Well, once in a conversation I was having with somebody over coffee, and one of my kind of little private satsangy things, and then in the evening at the meditation class I was leading, it kind of came up again. And what's interesting is that sometimes we think that we've got to kind of wait until things are out of the way, when we get ideal circumstances, then we'll kind of, then we'll have our lives, then we'll do our meditation practice, then we'll do our yoga, then we'll get into our juicing, then we'll take care of ourselves, once all this other stuff is out of the way. And the thing is, that other stuff is never going to get out of the way. There's never going to be a time where life just isn't kind of going on dynamically. And most of what I do is centered around the idea of what I try to encourage, and why I make these videos is because we are consciousness. All of life, all of existence is kind of consciousness expressing itself. That's all that it is. But we've come to believe that we are the mind, and we've come to believe that we're the emotions.
And so we tend to think of life as being things that we think about hard all the time, or things that we feel intensely about. And then, we meet somebody with a different set of feelings and intensities. And then we either kind of, somehow there's a resonance between those and we call that love. Or there's not a resonance between those and we call that hate. And out of all of that stuff, of course, every ill in the world comes. But amazingly, and if you're watching this, I'm sure I'm talking to you when I say this. Some of us are waking up. Some of us know that that's not all that we are. We are more than that. We are consciousness itself. There's no need to use words like enlightenment or spirituality or anything. You can do. Unfortunately, when we talk about those things, then we sometimes touch on the edges of religion, and religion, of course, is largely cultural. So we have to believe in kind of like the cultural aspects, and believing in things doesn't mean that you know something. Believing in things mean you believe in something. You're making some sort of leap of faith or trying to convince yourself of something a lot of the time. Although people do use the word belief for knowing as well, but I often take it to mean not knowing. So, I was talking at the meditation class last night that usually when people come along to the classes or the retreats or my journaling days or whatever it is, there's usually a feeling that the person expresses, which is, I want to change my life. I want to get away from something. I have a problem to solve. This thing happened to me, or this thing is happening to me, or my life is like this now. And so we often look at sort of meditation and spiritual work as being about moving away from those problems. And of course, as soon as you identify with the problem, what do you get but more of it? And if you engage with the battle of it, well, I don't know if you've ever tried to not think about somebody that you love, or that you maybe have really got the hots for, or maybe you've thought about and maybe tried to not think about something that's made you kind of pissed off and angry. Then it just can't be done. And ideas of meditation which try to kind of sort of focus the mind so we don't experience those things anymore tend to be repressive, and of course they kind of come back in very, very hard. It kind of sneaks out another way, either through an emotional outburst or an absolute meltdown at some point. So concentrating, forcing, visualizing, intentioning, wishing don't work. And looking for kind of some big spiritual experience just to wash it all away again. This is now, this is today, this is, what time is it? It's 20 to 9 on a Wednesday morning, and I have a meeting in an hour about intentional communities. And yeah, I mean, some of that stuff serves a purpose if we're very, very out, if we're very, very out. But actually, just the realization that we are consciousness itself and getting to know what that actually means is key. That's all that, when I say the word meditation, that's what I mean. And the reason why I do this work is because I want to live in a world where we actually meet each other. I want to meet you when I meet you, and so much, we create intimacy. We try to create intimacy, which is usually between families. So we have the intimacy of being with our child and so on. We have the intimacy of being with our partner. Maybe we go on a date night and things like that. And because we kind of sort of take some of our layers off with each other, there is a depth of intimacy, and consciousness does come through. But as long as we're living from the mind and from emotions in such a strong way, without understanding that those things are reporting back to the consciousness that we actually are, then we're just kind of taking stabs at it in a way, and we're coming from a place of conditionality. So it's all dependent on the conditions that we create. If you do this thing for me and I'll do this thing for you, then we'll call that thing love, we'll call this thing a marriage, we'll call this thing a friendship, we'll call this thing a country. You know, if you behave this way to be in this family, you follow these rules. And all that conditioned way of living just creates individual borders and separation, and we believe in separation, and we want to try and find our tribe and all this sort of thing. But instead of concentrating on this as a problem, it's just a very simple truth and fact that when we start living from consciousness, and the mind can't do this, and this is where in the West particularly we have a problem with this. In the East, in India, I spend a lot of time in India, the problem operates in a different way because they come from a kind of largely emotional basis, but it intrudes in the same way. So there's kind of like almost like a kind of soap opera kind of emotional reactivity, whereas in the West we have a tendency, and I'm making a huge generalization, but we have a tendency towards analytical, you know, thinking that the mind can figure everything out, and it's a bit like kind of, you know, we're kind of trying to look into the depths of space and understand the meaning of life, and we're trying to look inside electrons and atoms and understand the meaning of life. And the one question that we're not asking, or the one thing that we're not talking about, is who are we? Who is this consciousness? And yet it takes absolutely no effort to experience consciousness. You're experiencing consciousness right now. It's not about being clever, as you can see. It's not about being clever. It's not about what degree you've got. It's not about who loves you. It's not about how much money you have. It's not about your upbringing. It's not about whether you're black or white or male or female or trans. It doesn't matter what books you've read. You know, it doesn't matter whether you're in prison or you're living on a 60th floor penthouse in some amazing building. It's the same thing. It's the same thing, that we are consciousness. And when in yoga and meditation and so on people talk about self-realization, what they actually mean is the realization of the self, of waking up to the consciousness that we are. The mind isn't going to do this because we've filled the mind with stuff over our lives, and the things that we fill it with, and then we come to sort of see through the filters of, those things are entirely conditional, whereas consciousness is not conditional. So that was quite a long way round, but the truth is that actually, as we deepen into life, as we take a kind of small courageous steps, and courage is just like a little leap, you know, that's all it is, just kind of a 10-second leap. It's not a big constant thing. But as we kind of take the leap to be vulnerable with ourselves, or that life forces vulnerability upon us, which it does through suffering if we don't kind of consciously choose our evolving by coming into presence, these spaces are then forced on us through deaths and relationship breakdowns and work problems and things like that, which try to force a space in us so that we can actually sort of come back to consciousness. But because we tend to do that from a negative place, or a place of pain and suffering, very often we entrench into our difficulties again afterwards, or it actually makes it more so or deeper. So how do you do it? How do you know your consciousness? Well, you already know your consciousness. You know right now, for example, that you're watching this video. You know right now that your mind is thinking. You can see your thoughts arising and passing away. Some of those thoughts attach because they're the kind of thoughts that kind of create the being that you are, the person that you think you are. And then they create emotion so that you have an intenser experience, and then we tend to believe that's what we are. But all of that stuff is witnessed by something. And all of your senses, your 5 senses, are going on their own. and your breath is kind of coming and going on its own. And yet all of that stuff, especially the senses, are just silently reporting to the consciousness. They're not reporting to the mind. The mind can then kind of process what's going on with the senses, but it's coming somewhere else first. So all you do is be aware of that place. So if you're sitting on a bus now, you're sitting at home, you're on a train, you're on an aeroplane, you're in an airport, or you're in an office somewhere, kind of because it's, your lunchtime and you're sneakily watching a video or something like that, or you're doing one of those sneaky afternoon things just to kind of get to the end of the day. I used to do when I worked conventionally, which I never do now. I never skive off from myself anymore, but back in the old days, it was very difficult to get through a working day sometimes. Just tune in to the sounds around you. Just tune into the sounds around you, wherever you are right now. And instead of actually thinking about the sounds and commenting on them, notice that your mind may do that. And then notice that you can notice like a kind of the silence that everything arises from behind it. You see, instead of getting caught in the reaction and what the mind's doing about these sounds, you just come back to that. Now, there you are, you're experiencing kind of the inner state of consciousness. Now, that's not the answer to everything, but it's the beginning. It's when we then come to that place, we're no longer in a place of reactivity. If we do that when we're talking to another person or we're spending time with another person, we'll actually hear them. If you listen to the silence behind the person, you'll actually hear the person and they'll feel met. And it's not an act of will, it's not a false face that we put on, So, as I said to you before, the reason I do this work is because I'm tired of falseness. I'm tired of people not meeting each other. I'm tired of not being met. I'm tired of not meeting you. And yet here we are, here we are right in front of each other, and yet we don't meet. We don't meet. And all it takes is to kind of just listen to the silence behind each thing, which is not a kind of, I am listening to the silence now, commenting on it sort of thing. It's not the mind making it up. Just try and see. Try and see if you feel like it. And amazingly what happens after this is that as we do this, and at first it's an effort, yes, it's an effort, but this is meditation. You turn up and you just simply rest in that silence behind the senses. And you'll notice after a short time that things start moving in a slightly different way. Things and people that are meant to kind of come into your life seem to come into your life much more easily. And situations and people that are meant to leave your life tend to just kind of go. Because you're not joining in with their made up stories anymore. You're not rejecting them, you're not arguing with them or having a fight with them. It's just they go because you're no longer putting energy into them. The things in your own life that you've been living through, which we tend to live acquisitively if we're not living from presence and consciousness, then we live through movies and DVDs and owning things and the car and status and stuff like that. And as we rest in the truth of ourselves, and that becomes like a kind of flowering in our hearts, those things become much less important to us. The habitual patterns that we've been living through kind of ease up a lot. And we find ourselves, because we're open in this way and we don't have to wear armour so much, that we become intimate with life. We become intimate with other people, just in small daily things, buying our coffee, getting the car washed, getting the car repaired, doing our shopping at work, with our partners, with our families. We'll notice our family relationships improve. We'll fall in love with small things, little flowers, pieces of art, and we'll just notice more because we're not lost in making a world up from conditionality. And it just deepens and deepens from there, and life becomes very, very beautiful because of intimacy. And of course, there's the sensual and sexual idea of intimacy too. And And what I found in my own life is that, you know, with a lot of my lovers of the past, because I was living through my stuff, this is not easy to talk about, but because I was living through my stuff, we were never really intimate, you know? We were never really intimate. Whereas now, when I'm with my partner, we are just intimate. We actually meet each other, you know? And you know, she meditates too, and we do our yoga together and so on. And so, you know, it's not a competition or anything like that of who can be most in life or anything like that. It's just opening up, and you have to take responsibility for your own relationship to consciousness. You know, this is what Jesus Christ meant by the kingdom of heaven is within. You know, I hope if you're still trying, if you're still listening to the silence behind the sounds, do it even as I speak, if you like, and you see that nothing's being added to you. You know, you see that nothing's been taken away from you. You see that you're not being asked to believe in anything. You're not being asked to change your religion if you have a faith. In fact, what we're really doing is coming to the source of faith, coming to the source of truth and God and religion and life, if you want to use those terms. But you don't have to, you know. You don't have to be a religious person. And neither do you have to kind of, you know, slave drive yourself to a place of kind of opening up, you know, by you know, doing so much yoga that you kind of suddenly wake up one day or something like that. We are already here, you know. The universe wanted you to be here, otherwise you'd be somebody else, you know. And I don't mean the egoic you, I mean the truth of you, the consciousness of you, which then expresses itself through the dynamic aspects of your life. It's just that as we express ourselves through the dynamic aspects of our life, our work, our relationships and so on, if we're doing that from a made up and conditional place, there's no satisfaction in it. None at all. There's just a feeling of needing to win, of competing. Whereas when we come from and always trying to achieve something, whereas if we come from a place of actual presence, opening up from inside, the kingdom of heaven, kingdom of life, the kingdom of truth inside us, then we're just here. We're just here. And whatever comes and goes is whatever comes and goes. And amazingly, our senses still work, our breath still breathes, our thoughts become useful to us because we can actually, oh, there's an option, and that's not an option, you know, oh, that's the old me there talking, that's the conditional stuff going on. Oh, fascinating. We actually can discern, you know. And we can go to work, and we can drive our cars, you know, we can walk our dogs and take the car to the garage and do our yoga and so on and so on and so on. So it's not about magic and making things up or visualizing or anything. Just come home. Come home. So yeah, I think that was probably quite long-winded, and because that's me. And but this is kind of what came up. So each day, you know, things sort of present themselves, and that's it. Well, so what's presenting itself is what's presenting itself. If you're interested in what we've been talking about, or you're interested in coming along to any of the meditations, or you know, you'd like to kind of try stuff yourself but you're further away, take a look on the website, you know, authenticliving.life. And you know, there are some kind of resources and tools on there, some free meditations and stuff like that. There's a CD that you can buy, a download of some inspiring poems to listen to, bits and bobs, you know. But over the next little while, as things kind of grow and develop, I'm hoping to kind of start doing some day retreats in different places, or some slightly longer retreats, or maybe kind of, you know, be invited into some weeks of things kind of going on, and you know, contributing to those things. I'm also very interested in, I'm starting to look at kind of working with well-being and health within businesses, and I'm actually next week doing a couple of days where I'm doing exactly what we've just talked about, working with some 11-year-olds in schools, just to show them how to be actually where they are, rather than just kind of being lost in all the stuff that's kind of floating around them. And I've had great success with this in the past, so we're going to do sort of meditation and creativity. So it's more about kind of emotional awareness and kind of just feeling and living from consciousness, and then applying that through the work that they do in school, of course, and their lives. I did a year in a school where I would go in every Monday, and this is exactly what we were doing. And I just did some stuff at a festival a couple of weeks ago for homeschool children and their families. And what's amazing is when it comes to exam results, the exam results are always like 2 levels higher from the kids that I've worked with. Not because I've taught them anything and no tricks, but just that they're actually present when they're in the classroom. So I'm looking at kind of doing a bit more of that. But the thing that excites me most, I have to say, is just trying to sort of bring this stuff out. And then when I see somebody genuinely take it on board, understand something beautiful in themselves, the truth of themselves, that's not a created place, how that kind of lights them up, and then how, the feedback to me, the joy for me, is then to meet the truth of that person, which is just often just passed in a smile, So, what time is it? Yes, it's time for me to go. I say I've got this meeting quite soon, so I've got to go and do that. I wish you a blessed day. Please have a look on the website. Please subscribe to this YouTube channel, because it will make me feel lovely if you do. So, give this video a thumbs up if you like. If you think it's useful to somebody else, please share it. If you want to start a little meditation practice of your own, get in touch with me and get a CD, something like that, and maybe I'll see you out on the road somewhere, because the urge to kind of go out and just meet and talk with people is growing, actually, a lot. So lots of love to you. Have a beautiful, beautiful day. Bless you.